I woke up to frost edging the corners of our bedroom window and a text that froze me even more. I need time. Please don't reach out. That was it. No good morning. No explanation. Just 8 words that felt like a door slamming shut. My name is Noah Bellamy. I'm 36 years old and I live in Ashland, Oregon. I'm an architect, one of those guys who cares too much about wood grain, who takes forever picking out doorknobs, who built his dream lakefront home not just for himself, but for her. Elise. My wife. The woman who used to dance barefoot on these floors when they were still covered in plastic and sawdust. She helped me choose the light fixtures, argued over whether the porch swing should face the water or the woods. This house was her just as much as it was me. And now, without warning, she was gone. It was a Monday morning, cold and quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like the world moved on without you. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her message like maybe if I looked hard enough, it would change. But it didn't. The sheets beside me were cold. She hadn't slept there last night. I hadn't noticed. That made me feel like a failure. I got up, walked into the kitchen, and turned on the kettle out of habit. Her favorite tea was still in the tin by the stove. Jasmine green. She liked it a little bitter, steeped longer than most people would tolerate. I made it anyway. 1 cup for her. 1 for me. I carried both to the living room and placed hers by the windowsill where she always liked to sit in the mornings. She'd wrap her hands around the mug and watch the birds that nested in the trees across the lake. I left it there, untouched. I tried to make sense of it. We hadn't fought. There were no slammed doors, no cruel words, no warning signs that felt like this. I told myself it was her job. The pressure. Elise was a travel correspondent for a regional magazine, one of those jobs that sounds glamorous until you realize she was always living out of a suitcase, chasing deadlines in hotel lobbies. Lately she'd seemed tired. Like all the jet lag and interviews and flight delays had finally worn her down. So maybe this was burnout. Maybe she needed a break. Maybe she needed space, just like she said. But even that explanation felt hollow. Because she could have told me. She should have told me. I found myself checking the front door more than once, like maybe she'd come back through it. Like maybe this was all some bad dream and she'd walk in, drop her suitcase, and say, "God, I missed our kitchen." But all I heard was the kettle clicking off, the refrigerator humming, and the clock ticking far too loudly in the hallway. I didn't call her. I didn't text back. I didn't go looking. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was scared of what I might find if I did. That kind of silence? It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from someone who already left in their mind before they left in person. So I stuck to my routine. I watered the plants. Fed the cat. Brewed tea I knew no one would drink. By evening, I stood by the window staring at that untouched mug, stone cold now, the steam long gone. And I realized something terrifying. I had no idea when things had changed. No moment I could point to and say, there. That's when she started pulling away. It was like waking up to find a crack running down the center of a wall you built yourself. A crack that shouldn't be there. A crack that makes you question every measurement, every material, every decision you thought was solid. I picked up her tea and poured it down the drain. The next morning, I made it again. Just in case. 3 days later, I got tagged in a blog post. At first, I didn't even notice it. I was on my laptop drafting a floor plan for a new client, an eco-modern build with solar paneling and floor-to-ceiling glass. Something meant to feel open and rooted at once. That's when the notification popped up. At Elise Bellamy featured in this week's Travel Spotlight, check it out, Noah. It was from Jen, a former intern who still followed my work online. I clicked it without thinking. The blog was called Escapes Worth Sharing. A local travel publication. Harmless. Friendly. I figured maybe Elise had submitted some photos. Maybe it was a professional piece. But then I saw the cover image. Elise. In Santorini. Sun-kissed, glowing, standing on the edge of a balcony at golden hour. And beside her, not just beside her, with her, was Lucas Crane, her editor-in-chief. His arm was wrapped around her waist like it had always belonged there. She was smiling, leaning into him, sunglasses perched on her head like they were the only 2 people on Earth. I didn't breathe. I scrolled. Fast. The post was full of photos. Shots from a retreat meant to reignite the travel writer's spirit, according to the intro blurb. It was a couple's resort, exclusive, expensive, not the kind of place a solo journalist would go to recover from burnout. They were everywhere. On a boat. Laughing over cocktails. Wrapped in beach towels. There was even a blurry photo, clearly taken from inside a hotel room. Elise in a robe. Lucas shirtless behind her, holding a wine glass, his reflection caught in the mirror behind them. My stomach turned. This wasn't a fling. This wasn't a late-night lapse in judgment. This was calculated. A premeditated escape. And the dates? They matched. The retreat had started the same day she left me that cold, 8-word text. I need time. Please don't reach out. Right? Because texting I'm leaving you for my boss and we're headed to Santorini probably would have killed the vibe. I just sat there. The blog still open. My cursor hovering over her name like it might trigger an answer. This wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't a mistake. It was an exit plan. A carefully staged retreat masked as professional exhaustion. She used the language of stress and distance to soften the blow, but the truth was sharper than anything I could have imagined. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't unraveling. She was already gone. Already sleeping beside someone else. And the worst part? She looked happy. Carefree. Like I had been the burden all along. That night, I didn't make the tea. I sat in the dark instead. The windows open. The house silent but not peaceful. I kept thinking about the time Elise and I had first talked about that place. Santorini. She said it was her dream to go there one day. Not for work, she had said, for us. Just us. I had started a savings account for it. Funny. I guess she made it there after all. Just not with me. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept staring at those photos, every image burned into my brain like someone had left them too long under the sun. Elise on a balcony. Elise laughing into a glass of wine. Elise draped in a towel, legs across Lucas's lap like he'd been there forever. By morning, I wasn't even angry. I was sharp. Cold. Focused. Like someone had flipped a switch. I opened my blog. The one I'd built over the last 10 years, mostly to share project breakdowns, sketches, structural case studies. It had a quiet audience, mostly fellow architects, a few clients, a handful of students who liked reading about sustainable materials. It wasn't a place for gossip. Until that morning. I didn't write much. Just 3 sentences. When your home becomes a pit stop on someone else's detour. Elise, I hope the trip was worth it. Lucas, your ex-wife might enjoy these too. Then I uploaded 3 images. Not all of them. Just enough. One of them on the terrace, his hand resting on her hip, hers on his chest. Another at dinner, heads bent close over matching wine glasses. And the third, the mirror shot, grainy but unmistakable. I tagged Lucas Crane. And I tagged his ex-wife, Nina Crane. Yes. Ex. She'd finalized her divorce 2 months ago from what I remembered. She was a quiet, polite woman, an art teacher I'd met once at a magazine launch. She'd complimented Elise's scarf. I remembered that for some reason. I hit publish. And just like that, the detonation began. At first, it was just a few reactions. A couple of likes. A share or 2 from people who probably thought I was being poetic. Then someone clicked the tags. Then someone zoomed in on the photos. Then the comments started. Is this real? Wait, is that Elise Bellamy? Lucas Crane has a wife, doesn't he? The internet doesn't whisper. It screams. By noon, my inbox had over 40 new emails. Colleagues, clients, friends I hadn't heard from in years. Some offered support. Some offered speculation. Some just said holy shit. By late afternoon, the blog post had spread. People weren't just sharing it, they were dissecting it. Pulling timestamps. Finding connections. One guy linked the photo metadata to the same day Elise had taken a mental health week, according to her LinkedIn. Lucas's name started trending locally. Some idiot from his PR team tried to DM me with a cease and desist threat, saying I was violating privacy laws. I didn't respond. Because here's the thing. Elise made her story public the second she climbed into that man's arms and smiled for a branded blog piece titled Escapes Worth Sharing. Now people were sharing. The strangest part? I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Just this dull, blank stillness in my chest. I didn't do it to destroy them. I did it because I had nothing left to lose. Because they made it public first, my humiliation, my absence, my replacement. I just returned the favor. And by nightfall, Elise's cup was still on the windowsill. Right where I left it. Cold. Untouched. The phone rang just after 8 the next morning. I let it buzz until it stopped, watched the screen flash Lucas Crane and fade. He called again 10 minutes later. Same number. Same silence from me. The third time I picked up. Take the post down. His voice was tight. Controlled. Like someone trying to sound calm while their house burned down in the background. I didn't answer right away. I just sat at the kitchen table, coffee in one hand, staring out the window like it was any other Wednesday. Lucas filled the silence. You don't understand. I was told the marriage was over. Elise said she'd talk to you. That she'd moved out. I smiled, just barely. Did she mention the part where she left a mug on the windowsill? What? Never mind. He went quiet, then tried again. This could cost me everything, Noah. You've made your point, but please, this doesn't just hurt us. It affects clients, contracts. Your ex-wife's seen it by now, I said, cutting him off. Probably made her mourning. You don't know what you're doing. I think I do. I hung up. Elise called 30 minutes later. She didn't lead with hello. She didn't even sound angry at first. Just frantic. Noah, what the hell did you do? I didn't answer. I'm serious. Do you have any idea what kind of damage this causes? My job, my family, everyone's calling me. I'm being harassed, Noah. I stayed silent, sipping my coffee. You think this makes you look noble? You're petty. You're vindictive. You always play the victim, but this is cruel. Still nothing from me. You've ruined my life, she whispered, her voice cracking now. You don't get to act like you're the only one who's hurt. That's when I finally said it. Truth isn't cruel, I said. Lying is. Then I blocked her. After that, the floodgates opened. Texts, emails, DMs from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some defending Elise, some demanding explanations, some just rubbernecking the wreckage. Elise's sister sent a paragraph-long message calling me childish and desperate. Her mom left a voicemail that started with, "We always knew you'd overreact one day," and ended with something about therapy. I didn't answer any of it. I deleted, archived, blocked, and then I got to work. I went room by room, packing everything that had her name, her smell, her fingerprints, scarves, books, shoes, framed photos, that hideous bowl she loved from Morocco that always clashed with the dining room table. I wrapped it in newspaper and dropped it in a box without blinking. I wasn't angry. I was methodical. I even labeled the boxes. One for her, one for Goodwill, one for the trash. I found the candle she used to light during thunderstorms, the one that smelled like cedar and honey. I lit it once, just to see if it still made the room feel like her. Didn't. By the end of the day, her presence had been stripped from every inch of the house. All that remained were the bones I built, the hardwood floors we argued over, the fireplace I hand-laid stone by stone, the windows that faced the lake. Mine now, all mine again. And outside, the tea mug still sat on the windowsill, empty and stained, collecting dust, just like her promises. It started with the doorbell. Not a gentle press, not even a polite knock. This was a firm, angry ring, the kind meant to wake the dead or pick a fight. I stayed in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of whiskey in my hand. The ice clinked softly. Outside, through the security cam app on my phone, I saw Elise's sister standing on my porch in designer boots, arms crossed, face pinched like she just swallowed something sour. Next to her stood their mother, fur-lined coat, perfect hair, fury in her eyes. They didn't knock again. They just stood there, waiting, fuming, shifting their weight like this was their home and I was late letting them in. When I didn't come to the door, Elise's sister pulled out her phone and spoke loud enough for the mic to catch every word. You can't keep her locked out, Noah. I raised an eyebrow and took a sip. She deserves access. She lived here. You don't get to erase her just because you're having a tantrum. I muted the feed and walked to the living room. Sat down in my chair. Legs crossed. Swirled the whiskey. They rang the bell again. I let it echo. 5 minutes later, Elise appeared. She came rushing up the steps, her face pale, her movements tight and frantic. She wore a hoodie I didn't recognize and sunglasses too big for her face. Her hair was tied back messily, and in her hand, she held her old house key. I watched on the screen as she tried the lock. It didn't turn. She pulled harder. Still nothing. She said something to her mother. Something urgent, something pleading, but the camera didn't catch the words. Her shoulders started to shake. She tried the key again and again. Then she stopped. And that's when she saw the small sticker under the camera lens. This property is monitored and recorded. Owner, End, Bellamy. She stepped back, blinking fast. Her hands went to her face, tugging off the glasses. Her eyes were red. Not makeup smudged, raw. The kind of red that only comes from screaming into a steering wheel or crying alone in a parking lot. She turned toward the camera. For a second, I thought she might speak. But she didn't. She just looked at it. Like it might blink back. Her mother spoke next. Loud. Angry. You don't own her, Noah. And that was the breaking point. I stood, walked to the kitchen window, and looked out, not enough for them to see me, but enough for me to watch as Elise stood there with her useless key, surrounded by people who couldn't save her. She was sobbing now. Hands shaking. Her sister rubbing her back like it would fix anything. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't open the door. This was my house. I built every beam, every wall, every window with her in mind. And she turned it into a layover between lies. Eventually, they gave up. They walked back to their car, Elise the last to climb in. She looked back once. Not toward the window. Not toward the lake. Just at the door. And then she was gone. The whiskey was warm by then. I dumped the rest down the sink. And left her key on the windowsill next to that cold, forgotten mug. Seemed fitting. The email came in on a Thursday morning. Subject line, HR inquiry, anonymous concern regarding employee conduct. I opened it slowly like it might bite. The message was short, too short to be from someone who actually knew me. An anonymous source has alleged that your recent online activity reflects emotional instability and professional misconduct. We'd like to schedule a brief meeting to discuss and document a response. I leaned back in my chair, blinking. Emotional instability? Professional misconduct? There it was. The counterpunch. The meeting with HR was more awkward than tense. Emily, the rep, looked like she had been roped into a task she wanted no part of. We're not making any accusations, she said quickly. But since the blog post went public, we received some messages. Anonymous, I said. She nodded. But they used terms like unprofessional, hostile toward colleagues, retaliatory. I almost laughed. Because I exposed a public affair? Her expression shifted slightly. Noah, I know this is personal. I know how much you've contributed to this firm. But we do have a duty to follow up. So I gave her everything. The screenshots. The timestamps. The original blog post Elise had appeared in, the travel dates, the editor's role. Even the screenshots from Lucas's corporate profile where he'd praised professional integrity and strong communication just days before the retreat. I didn't shout. I didn't gloat. I just handed it all over, clean and calm. Emily skimmed the folder, flipping pages with wide eyes. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. We'll close this out. But that wasn't the end of it. A few days later, my lawyer called. Her name's Priya Mystery. She's brilliant, strategic, and the kind of person who can say the words intent to litigate in a way that makes grown men flinch. She didn't waste time. Elise's family retained counsel, she said. They're claiming you caused emotional damages. The number they're tossing around is $60,000. I blinked. What exactly did I do? Tell the truth too clearly. Allegedly, she said, you created reputational distress. Career interference. Public shame. Public shame she photographed herself into, I muttered. Priya didn't smile. They're not stupid, but they're desperate. She lost the job. The credibility. Probably the social network. What's the move? She smiled then, just slightly. We send cease and desist letters to Elise, her sister, and her mother. We remind them this is a defamation-free zone. Then we tell them if they want to proceed with a claim, we'll be countersuing for harassment and slander. Plus discovery. Discovery. We subpoena every text, every email, every post. From both sides. I sat back in my chair. Let the silence settle. Let's do it. The letters went out the next morning. By Friday, I got a one-line text from Elise's sister, "You're unbelievable." I blocked her. Elise never replied directly. But I heard from a mutual friend that she'd deleted her Instagram account. Lucas made his private. Damage control in full swing. And through it all, I stayed still. I went to work. I met deadlines. I kept the house clean. Not out of spite. Not to prove anything. But because it was mine again. And no amount of anonymous reports or inflated threats could change that. The storm they started was finally raining down on them. And I was dry. It didn't take long for everything to unravel. The first domino fell a week later. Nina Crane filed for divorce. She didn't make a scene. No blog post. No announcement. Just a legal filing in Multnomah County Court that named Elise Bellamy directly in the infidelity clause. No redactions. No euphemisms. Just truth. Plain and brutal. I got the call from Nina herself. A voicemail, actually. Short, calm, and to the point. Noah, thank you for the photos. And for the timestamps. I submitted them with the paperwork today. I just thought you should know. That was all. She didn't sound angry. Just done. Like someone who finally stopped holding her breath. Lucas got suspended from the publication the same afternoon. The story made waves in their tiny media world, an editor caught in a workplace relationship with one of his reporters, both of whom had publicly represented the company during a travel assignment. The blog post I had made was cited in a Reddit thread. Someone on Twitter compiled a whole timeline. The publisher had no choice. Placed on indefinite leave pending review. Which, in media speak, means pack your office up before Friday. Elise lasted another 6 days. A formal resignation letter appeared on her LinkedIn wrapped in vague language about personal recalibration and a necessary pivot. But I knew what really happened. She was asked to resign. Quietly. Politely. Professionally. So the fallout wouldn't taint the brand further. I didn't reach out. Didn't gloat. Didn't send flowers or fire off a smug message. I just kept living. I finished drafting a new design for a client in Seattle. I went to the gym. I bought groceries, chopped vegetables, cooked dinner in silence. I listened to jazz while sanding the edge of a table I had been building on and off for a year. For once, my life didn't revolve around waiting for Elisa's flight to land or wondering if she'd text from some exotic hotel lobby. She was gone. Not just physically, but publicly, socially, professionally. A neighbor mentioned seeing her back in town. Said she'd moved in with her mother. I didn't ask for more details. I already knew everything I needed. She had gone from champagne in Santorini to sleeping in her childhood bedroom, jobless, disgraced, and surrounded by the very people who had called me the villain. There was a kind of symmetry in that. I went down to the lake one night, just after midnight, and stood barefoot on the dock with a blanket over my shoulders. It was the first time I'd been out there since she left. The moon was high. The wind was cold. But the water was still. I didn't feel hollow. I didn't feel broken. I just felt alone. And it was okay. Because every day I was reclaiming a little more space. A little more air. A little more of myself from the wreckage she left behind. It started with a list. Not a letter. Not an apology. Not even a how are you. Just a plain email with the subject line, items to be returned. Inside was a bullet point list from Elise. A scarf her aunt gave her. A stack of vinyl records she never played. A coffee mug with her college logo on it. 2 sweaters she forgot in the guest room closet. A candle I bought for her last Valentine's Day. And this one made me blink, a sketch I had drawn of her back in 2018. Pencil on parchment. Framed. She wanted that too. There were 11 items total. Only 3 were hers in any real way. The rest were things I had created, chosen, or carried through the life we built. She didn't want the memories. She wanted proof she still had a piece of this place. I forwarded the email to Priya. She responded in less than an hour. Noah, per the terms of separation, she's entitled to personal belongings only. Not gifts. Not sentimental objects you created. I'll draft a formal reply with pickup instructions. No contact. No confrontation. Third party only. Perfect. 2 days later, Elisa's sister came to collect the boxes. She pulled up in a gray SUV wearing sunglasses so large they looked theatrical. She didn't even glance at the house. Just marched to the porch like it was her job and not a shameful errand. I had already stacked everything in 2 labeled containers by the front steps. The sketch wasn't in there. Neither was the candle. They weren't hers to take. I watched from the kitchen, the doorbell came playing live on my phone. She didn't ring it. Just grabbed the bins, shoved them into the trunk, and drove off like she'd just stolen something. Which, to be fair, had always been her family's specialty. Elise never followed up. No, thanks. No, I appreciate it. Nothing. Just silence. Which was the most honest thing she'd given me in months. That night, I walked through the house like a museum curator, checking every corner for remnants. Every shelf. Every drawer. There was nothing left of her. No traces. No ghosts. Just the home I built. The bones I chose. The foundation that never cracked even when she did. On the windowsill, the old tea mug still sat, stained and dusty. I picked it up, turned it in my hands, then finally tossed it into the trash. She wanted symbols. Closure. She'd get neither. Because some things don't get wrapped in bows or written in apology emails. Some things just get thrown away. It happened on a Sunday. Gray skies. Bare trees. That late winter stillness that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. I had just come back from the hardware store. Picked up a few things to fix the gate Elise never stopped complaining about. I parked the truck, stepped out, and saw her, standing across the street. Hands jammed into the pockets of a long coat. Hair pulled back like she hadn't bothered much that morning. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but in presence, like the weight she carried had finally caught up with her. She didn't wave. She just waited. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, one hand on the truck door, waiting for her to move. Eventually, she did. She crossed slowly, eyes on the gravel. When she reached the foot of the driveway, she stopped like there was a line she couldn't cross. "I'm not here to cause a scene," she said. I didn't answer. Her voice cracked, and she swallowed hard. I didn't know where else to go. I crossed my arms. "You found Santorini pretty easy." She winced. "I deserved that." I didn't say anything. She looked down at her boots, then back up at me. "I messed up. Bad. I know that. You don't have to tell me. I see it now." A long silence settled between us. Then she whispered, "I thought you'd wait for me." That stopped me for half a second. She looked up at me with eyes that used to make me stop mid-sentence, mid-step, mid-plan. But now they just looked tired, dull, washed out. "I thought," she continued, "you'd be here when I was ready to come back. That you'd understand. That we—" "No," I said it flat, final. She took a step back, like she'd been slapped. "You should go," I added, voice even. "There's nothing for you here anymore." Her breath caught. For a second I thought she'd cry, but she didn't. She nodded, barely, like her neck was too heavy to lift. Then she turned and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't say another word. And I didn't watch her go. I stood there until the SUV disappeared down the hill. Then I walked inside, closed the door behind me. The house was silent, but not heavy, not hollow, just still. And this time I didn't feel like I was missing something. This time I knew the silence was mine. Spring came late that year. The kind of slow, quiet arrival where you don't even notice it's happening. Just one day the trees look a little fuller, the breeze doesn't bite so hard, and the birds wake you up before your alarm. I started painting again. Not because I was trying to rediscover myself or find beauty in pain. I just wanted color back in the house. Something not tied to blueprints or floor plans. I bought a canvas from a shop downtown, cracked open a few old tubes of acrylic, and started with shapes, lines, messy strokes. No plan, just movement. I hadn't done that in years. I also started clearing out the things I had ignored. The attic full of dusty boxes, the garage corner where her suitcase still sat untouched. I didn't even realize I had left it there. I opened it once, saw a pair of sandals and a scarf that still smelled like her perfume, then zipped it shut and donated the whole thing. Someone else could deal with it. I wasn't dragging any of that into my next chapter. I saw her friend at the grocery store. Rachel, the one Elise used to laugh with until her sides hurt. She froze when she saw me by the produce section, then approached like someone who didn't know if she was supposed to be sorry or defensive. "I didn't know," she said quietly. "Not until it all came out. I didn't ask what all meant. I didn't need to. I'm sorry, Noah. For what it's worth." I shrugged. "Not your apology to make." She nodded, and that was it. She walked away with a bag of apples and silence between us. But it didn't sting. It didn't feel like anything at all. A couple months later, I got an offer from a firm in Seattle. High-rise design, green tech integration, a bigger office, a bigger team, new city, new skyline. I didn't hesitate. I signed the paperwork that night. Not because I needed to run, but because, for the first time in a long time, I wanted to build forward instead of cleaning up behind me. The house sold fast. A young couple bought it, expecting their first child, wide-eyed and excited about the lake view and the garden Elise never cared to tend. I didn't tell them the history. I didn't owe them the ghosts. On my last night there, I stood in the living room. Empty walls, bare floor. Every echo felt like a breath finally exhaled. I sat on the floor for a while, just letting the quiet settle. There were no memories tugging at me, no tea mug on the sill, no trace of her voice in the hall. Only peace, only stillness. It didn't hurt anymore, felt earned. The next morning, I packed my truck and drove north. No music, no distractions, Just the hum of the road and the horizon widening in front of me. And I thought, this is what healing really looks like. Not a grand gesture. Not revenge. Not closure from someone who'll never give it. Just waking up one day and realizing, you're free. And ready.